Good evening, viewers, and welcome to the Arctic World. I am your host, ARSHAD. Today, we are having a very distinguished guest with us, Janaab Mustaq Soofi sir, who is a Punjabi poet par excellence, critic, translator, editor, and music composer. Welcome to our show, Mr. Soofi.
Thank you.
How are you?
I'm fine.
Thank you very much for sparing time for this program.
Pleasure.
We'll discuss so many things with you about poetry, Punjabi poetry, music. But I would like to start our conversation with your article published in Daily Dawn this Monday. Actually, that I found it very interesting because it referred to the famous John Lennon songs, Imagine, which reminded me of 60s era of Beat generation, youth who was so full of imagination, dreams, hopes for a better world. But you applied this song to our current situation and expressed your desire that maybe if someday our country, our land should also be prosperous, it should be free of environmental degradation, and so many other things. I agree with that, but I would like to further add into that and hear from you, since you are a cultural historian as well in a way. How would you like to imagine current cultural, literary, music scene of today as compared to your yesteryears when you were young, and or what you had seen in your younger age?
I think when you grow old, what you have is the past. So usually the aged people, they always talk of the past and glorify it. And at some level, it might be true that life becomes more complicated with the passage of time. So when I was young, as I'm slightly senior in years to you, so I think there was a hope in the society. Young people dreamed of better future, read books, had a great dialogue, cultural interactions, and especially let's remember that 70s, 60s, 70s, particularly 70s, was a very inspiring period because there was a Vietnam War going on, and that war brought together all the democratic people, freedom-loving people together in protest against the aggression against Vietnamese people. So that generated a kind of hope, dream, which we all shared. But suddenly now, I would say that the kind of dream is still there. It's not totally lost. But the nature of that dream has changed. It has become more self-centered and individualistic. Everybody talks about his or her future, not the way previous generation used to visualize future as collective, something collective, shareable, meant for all. That is the difference I feel.
But that's true, but I was just thinking, if you have to imagine political literary art scene of today, how would you like to imagine? Referring to your own article, that if it could be possible like this. We know that things may not be possible. It also reminds me of Bernard Shaw's line that you see the things as they are and ask why. I see the things they never were and ask why not. So
I think in a creative life, two things are very important. One is intuition, other is imagination. So we construct our future in imagination. And with the passage of time, it is realized. That is how the history moves. We are the only creature who have sense of time, past, present, and future, and we can plan things which will be materialized later. So if things have gone wrong and situation is poor for us, we can imagine a different world, and we have the potential to change ourselves. So the column I wrote for the Dawn, just John Lennon's song triggered my imagination. I thought, what if we imagine how Potoir would be, how without cement factories, and how our cotton growing area would be without sugar industries, because they have in a way destroyed ecology and added to the environmental degradation. So I think imagination should always inspire us. Otherwise, reality is quite oppressive, you know. So, in order to get rid of oppression of reality, we must imagine things. Imagine the way we want things to be.
Coming back to your poetry and your journey of your poetry, I understand that you started writing after your graduation, perhaps, or during your graduation.
Yeah.
When you were president of Punjabi Majlis in Government College Lahore.
Secretary.
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 So, as far as I remember, in those times, people would prefer to write poetry in Urdu language, mainly, here in Punjab, even if they are well versed with Punjabi language. And to decide to write in Punjabi poetry was your conscious decision. I would like to hear from you how you decided this and how Punjabi poetry attracted you more.
I was born in a village, and you can imagine that in those days, village used to speak Punjabi. It was all Punjabi you could hear all around. My parents, relatives, and other villages all spoke their mother language, that was Punjabi. So it was nothing new for me. As language, that was the language I was brought up with. Then when I came to Government College Lahore, I joined it as a student of BA. So I was living in the new hostel of Government College. So the late Ajmal Liazi, he was my 2 years senior, and we lived in the same hostel.
Okay.
So when he was leaving, he said, "Are you interested in becoming secretary of Punjabi Majlis?" As you know, as young men, everybody is in search of visibility, wants to be visible. So I said, why not? He said, usually the MA student is secretary of the Majlis, but I can try for you. I can talk to professors, and if they agree, you can hold this post. So he took me to very professor, a very learned professor. One was Jilani Kamran Saab. He later became my teacher at English department as well. And another was Salim Mir Saab. Jilani Saab taught English and Mir Saab taught Urdu. Salim Mir Saab, brother of famous intellectual and journalist Zeno Safdarbi.
Yeah.
So I had an interview with them. It was very brief. Somehow they liked me and said, nodded their head, okay, go ahead. Then it was, we are going to have inaugural session of the Majlis. Jilani Saab said, you please go meet a Punjabi poet, Najm Hussain Sayyed, and request him to come to inaugural and recite his poetry. So I went to see Najm Hussain Sayyed. He was working in audit and accounts, Pakistan. So I went there, a typical colonial office, man with big turban, kulla and uniform. So I gave him my slip. He went in and immediately came out and said, "You can go in." And to my surprise, Najm Sensei stood up
Okay.
and greeted me very warmly, and which was a bit surprising. You know, Punjabi bureaucrats are very stiff-necked, atrociously.
Yeah, I can imagine.
They are great hang-ups. So there was no hang-up. I felt I could feel the warmth with which I was received. So I requested him to come to the inaugural session. He said, "Why not? I would come." So he came. He read some of his poems. As I was very young at that time, I couldn't fully understand the poems, but I enjoyed the language immensely because I was familiar with the language. So that is how I was connected with the Punjabi Majlis and then with Najm Hussain Sayyid, who's obviously was a great poet, critic, intellectual, and musicologist as well. So he inspired me a lot. And something interesting happened that one day another gentleman, Tanveer Zahoor, he was a writer and editor of a magazine, literary magazine. He landed in the college, Government College Lahore, and he sought me. He met me and he said, why don't you come to Punjabi Sangat? And
This is Sangat which was the previous Sangat, Punjabi Sangat?
That was the only Punjabi Sangat.
Okay.
Just one
Okay.
Punjabi Adbi Sangat. It was called Punjabi Adbi Sangat.
Okay.
That was the main literary forum of Punjabi writers and intellectuals.
Okay.
So why don't you come? Because they used to hold their session at YMCA at the mall.
Okay. Okay.
So why don't you come and recite your poem, one of the poem? I said, I haven't written any. He said, write one. So to my own surprise, after a few days I wrote a poem and went to YMCA on the day. I read the poem. It was praised to the sky, especially by Shafqat Tanveer Mirza. Asif Khan also appreciated it, some other the elders of Punjabi literature. So I was very thrilled that is it so easy to get accolades. Now I realize it was not the merit of the poem that mattered. These generous souls, they wanted to encourage me to continue writing in Punjabi.
I think you are becoming modest. Otherwise,
No,
your poetry deserves such appreciation.
At that time, that's how I feel.
You have contributed so much to Punjabi poetry, like if I remember, 5 or 6 collection of
6, 7, 7.
Savi da Dhola,
Yeah.
Hate Forget Darya,
Yeah, Mitti da Baas,
Mitti da Mas,
Ta,
yeah,
Din Pani,
Din Pani.
Odak.
Yeah. I remember in your times when you were a student and you were started writing in Punjabi poetry, there was also some kind of conscious movement to revive Punjabi identity, if I remember correctly. You have referred to this Punjabi Adbi Sangat, then there was other Sangat which was kind of founded by Professor Manzoor Ejaz Sahab, Najm Hussain Sayyid Sahab.
No, that's much later.
Much later, okay.
But that's something different.
Okay.
Not much later, but later.
But that was kind of...
that was something very informal.
Okay, okay.
This was very formal structure,
Okay.
the Punjabi Adbi Sangat.
Okay. But then there was also a lot of intellectual debates about reinterpreting Punjabi folklore. I remember I happened to attend some discussions in which like Heer Ranja was being interpreted as something as social comment, a revolutionary comment you can say, in which is challenging oppressive structures and cultures and social traditions. And then there was kind of revival of things like collectively going to Shah Hussain festival, Mela Charana, which we used to say. And then there was also some effort to align this cultural movement with some political movements, revolutionary political movements as well. How would you like to comment on that era? And now, looking back, how do you see all these movements?
I think it was a very difficult time for Punjabi language and literature.
Okay.
In 60s, there was a Majlis Shah Hussain.
Okay.
It was banned. So all these previous generation to mine, they struggled very hard, intellectually, socially and culturally. They had to give up so many things and privileges in order to restore the dignity and prestige of their language and culture. And Punjabi of the Majlis was basically a literary forum where the writers would meet weekly and poetry, criticism, fiction would be presented for critical comment. And other function it performed was the kind of a, awareness campaign about the rights of Punjabi and culture and history. Then you were talking about the other Sangat, which was informal in mid-70s, 76 I believe. Najam Hussain Sayyid and younger lot, they got together and decided to have a kind of a group which was interested in the history of Punjab initially. And the young people who were basically founding members of...
You were also one of them, I guess.
Myself was also there, then was Izzat Majid, Akmal Hussain, Mansoor Ejaz, and some other, Asmat Qadir, late. He was from Multan, you must be knowing him. So the first few meetings were held in Punjab University, new campus. Then later the Najam Saab offered that we will be more comfortable if we move the meeting to my place.
Okay.
So it was moved to his place, and then it continued more and more. Instead of history, it became kind of a campaign for the revival of Punjabi language and literature. So all the classics, one by one, were read, discussed, critically evaluated. That is what the Sangat did. So it brought many new people to Punjabi literature.
In addition to writing poetry, you also collected folk songs of Punjab, kind of which were sung in the villages, which were not recorded, but you collected them and you compiled them into a book, Bar De Geet, I guess.
Yes.
So I think it's an amazing work, and I would like to hear from you what inspired you, and what was your experience? What did you find more in those songs and geets, if you like? What did they express ethos of Punjabi culture, traditions, and the way of their thinking?
Obviously, folk literature is reflective of people's collective psyche, their aspirations, their dreams, their sufferings. So that is what is beautiful thing about folk literature. So as a young man, I heard so many songs in different area, villages, and even in some towns. So I was kind of curious to know how to collect them. So I decided to go to the people who knew. Some of them were women, some were men. So collected songs, and basically these songs are from Bar. Bar means the area between two rivers beyond populated area. So it was a kind of basically from two bars. Ganji bar, that is from Sahiwal to Hanewal area, and the Sandal bar, that is
Sahiwal to Lahore, Ravi.
no, the Ganji bar starts from Pattoki to Hanewal along the river Ravi, between river Satluj and Ravi. The biggest bar is Sandal bar. That is on the right side of the Ravi. It's between Chenab and Ravi, river Chenab and river Ravi. They have the largest area, like it has Lailpur, Faisalabad, Nankana, Toba, Tek Singh, Jang, Chaniot, not Chaniot, Shorecoat, so all these areas. Basically, these songs were collected from these areas. They are fascinating songs, and they have on diverse theme, marriage, love, separations, or family reunion. So all kind of experiences are there in those songs.
So now there is no Ravi, there is no Satluj. So I don't know where
yes.
would we find this bar.
Yes, that is why I in 74 wrote Asi Jameda Ravi Sukhi.
You did some translations as well. One of the, it's Communist Party's manifesto you translated. Then Bertolt Brecht's poetry you translated.
Yes, yes.
Brecht has been even staged in Pakistan, like Exception in the Rule.
Yes.
And Galileo, I think that is not
No,
staged. But
Caucasian Chalk Circle was played.
Caucasian Chalk Circle.
Was played.
But poetry, at least I haven't seen that in Punjabi language. Both of these have Marxist, Brecht was also having Marxist inclinations.
Yes, but his vision was not entirely shaped by Marxism.
No artist can be shaped by just
some are, but he had a much wider vision, and his poetry is as great as his plays, if not more, if not greater. It's very, very effective because it combines experience with the cerebral vision. That is the most beautiful thing about his poetry.
Okay.
So I was totally floored by his poetry when I read it in early 60s, 1980s. Matthew edition was very famous, and his poetry was almost translated by 36 poets, bilingual poets. It's such a wonderful translation from German. So I translated some of his poems. It was much later, it was published in fact in 95 or 6. I translated in mid-80s, and after 10 or 15 years it was published, and that too, it was published by a publisher. The few days after it came out, he ran away. he left the country.
And there's another translation which it was, I think, Oral Stories of Punjab.
Yes, it's a recent publication. Oral Stories from Punjab. Mia Kamaldeen was a great storyteller in the traditional format. So his stories are published with the title Kamal Kahani. So they are great stories that, and he has a very broad sweep from Alexander to Dariush, and from Ranjit Singh, Hari Singh to saints, and from Rat, feudal lords to the paupers. He weaves magical stories, narrates them. So I and a friend of mine, a colleague of mine, Mrs. Athiya Shirazi, we thought of translating these stories. So they were published by, recently published by the National Book Foundation, Islamabad.
And then coming to music, most of the time you spent in PTV. As far as I know, you did music programs.
Mostly,
yeah. Rag Rang was one of your...
Yes, classical music. It was program of classical music.
Then you, after your retirement from PTV, I guess you ran this Sachal Studios.
Yes.
It was a great studio with state-of-the-art equipment in Pakistan, and it has many great singers like Ustad Fateh Ali Khan, Mubarak Ali Khan, Reshma, Frida Khanam, Mehnaz, I guess, and
Yes.
many others. And just
Anybody who was somebody was recorded by us.
and this morning I was just looking at Facebook. Someone has posted one of your productions on the Facebook, which was poetry was yours. Dhoye Sade Zakhma.
Dhovi Sade Zakhma,
Dhovi Sade
Yodhya Paniya.
Yeah.
It was composed by Kadir Shagar.
Kadir Shagar, yeah.
Kadir Shagar.
And then there's a beautiful poet song of yours, Chet Chadiya, which is very popular.
This was composed by Ustad Nazar Hussain.
Ustad Nazar Hussain.
Yes.
Well, your poetry and Ustad Nazar Hussain's composition.
Wonderful. He was a wonderful composer.
What a blend. So tell me how this idea of Sachal's studio came into your mind, and of course your colleague Izzat Majid Sahab as well. And it had done a tremendous job in music, preserving and creating local traditions of music. And now it's no more. So just few words about that, if you have to say something.
It's a little
It went
story.
even internationally as well.
Yes.
You played it in New York as well?
New York, London, even in India.
Hari Haran was the one.
Yes, we recorded him at
Studio.
he did a complete album with us. And he came to Lahore.
Okay.
We did not go to Bombay to record him. I said, you come over. We will record you here. It's a little story. One night, Izzat Majid was left for Saudi Arabia in early 80s. Then he moved to London and became a very successful entrepreneur. So had a lot of funds. One day he calls me that I am in Lahore and I need such and such songs of PTV. I just want private listening. I said, okay, I will try. So next day I got the song with the condition that you will not share it with anybody, just private listening. So the next day phones come to me, this is all muck. What you have sent me? I said, you asked for it. I did not select anything for you. You asked for it and you got it. I said, okay, now I send you some another song. I sent him Mian Shahriar's song, Kafis. He composed it, Mian Shahriar, a beautiful composer. He composed some of the Khaja Ghulam Farid's Kafi and sang himself. I sent 2 Kafi to him. And the next day I got the phone from him. He was totally thrilled. He said, wonderful. Never thought that this kind of music is available. So then he said, when we met, and he said, yeah, Soofi, we have been dreaming of making music when we were young. And we were reading Punjabi classics, and at the end we would sing it. And from those days we carried this dream that one day we will make music. And by the way, Izzat himself is a musician. He can play tabla. Percussionist, he is a percussionist. So he said, why not if we start making music? I said, welcome, why not? He said, okay, let's do it. So initially we started recording music. But he said, there are 2 conditions. You collaborate with me, but there are 2 conditions. One, we will produce the kind of music we love, not the market loves.
Yeah. Not playing to the gallery.
Yes. And secondly, we would not do any commercial activities. It will be purely cultural, aesthetic activity. I said, okay. And the formula was that we will produce the song or music on which we both agree. With the consent of both, it will be produced. So I said, fine. He had resources, so initially we started recording. We recorded Mia Saab's album, Mia Sharjah's album, and then we made an album with Fateh Ali Khan Saab, Gwalior Gharana, from Hyderabad. So then, we used to hire studios. One day he says, look, these studios are basically home studios. The quality is very poor. Why not that we build our own studio and we create a quality that is acceptable internationally? I said, nothing like it. If you can raise the fund, dish out the money, we can do it. So we started thinking of making studio. Then he hired Christopher Brecher, a German musician, sound engineer. He gave us plan for building the studio. So the piece of land was bought.
It was on Varis Road.
Varis Road. And the first purpose-built studio of Pakistan emerged.
Okay.
It was meant for studio, for nothing else. So Christopher Brecher, our consultant, then he selected the best equipment for us available in the market, international market. He came from London. He was London-based. Came to Lahore and stayed here and built this studio and made it operational. That is how this thing came up.
Great. You recorded quite a few kafis as well.
Yes, we recorded more than 26 albums. We recorded Fateh Ali Khan Saab, we recorded Mubarak Ali Khan Saab, we recorded Farida ji, we recorded Reshma ji, we recorded Humaira Channa, we recorded Gulbar Bano, Ali Raza Khan, Mehnaz, or Begum Mehnaz Begum, Tarannum Naz, name Gulbahar Banu, name any, we recorded all. And it was the finest recording we have of these singers, because it was high quality equipment. And secondly, what we did was that we never used electronic instruments.
Okay, all manual.
We used what we call acoustic instruments, which are played manually with the hands or mouth. Not that we use organ and it plays Shehnais. That looks so silly.
Yeah.
Or santoor, but that is the way, the cheapest way of making music. You hire one organ and you compose music. So it was kind of totally acoustic music, and we built kind of more than 50 men orchestra.
Well, while we are discussing Kafi and its music, there are three kinds of poetic traditions in Punjabi poetry, I guess. One is this Kafi, the other is storytelling like love stories, Heer Raja, Mirza Sahiban, and third is probably the wars, which were written, epic stories. Can you just tell us something for our viewers, how we define these genres?
Generally, what you say is generally true, because we have several genres in Punjabi literature. Initially, the first genre that was used was Shlok by Baba Farid, much before Guru Nanak Sahib. So, but generally, if we look at this literary scene and literature, we can 3 or 4 main genres see in Punjabi literature. one shlok, Doda or Bath. They fall almost in the similar category. And other is lyrical structure. That is Kafi.
Okay.
It started in 16th century. Shah Hussain is the pioneer of this form of poetry. It is basically meant for singing. And Shah Hussain also indicates the raga in which it is preferred
To be sung.
to sung. Not that it cannot be sung in Nadi raga or Mishra Mel, it can be sung in any way, but in order to have enhanced ambience, that particular rag will help. So this became very popular structure. After Shah Hussain, we have some great poets like Bule Shah, then Sachal Sarmast, and then Khaja Ghulam Farid. Apart from many smaller poets, these are big names in that lyrical structures. And against it, vis-a-vis Kafi, we have another great genre, that is storytelling, legends, tales, which started with Damodar Das Gulati in 16th century. He was the first. He was from Jhang, from where we have this legend of Heer, and he was the first to compose it.
Okay.
And and then
I guess you edited this book as well.
yes,
That,
yes, yes. So it flourished. This form flourished very much, and it was very popular with people. Still is, because then the more then we have we have Hafiz Barkhurdar.
But he
wrote
Sahiba, he wrote Mirza.
He wrote Mirza Sahiba. I mean that the genre is same,
Okay,
storytelling, right? And before him, Pilu of Dhan wrote the first version of Mirza Sahiba, followed by Hafiz Barkhurdar in 17th century, and then Farid Shah, and then Heeds were composed by so many, like Chirag Awan and Mukbal, Farid Shah, and so many others, because it became highly popular. And another form is, genre is war, that is epic poetry, and it basically deals with the historical character, personages, historical events which have a collective nature. So, some very famous, we have some very famous celebrated wars. The greatest war is Nijabaddi War, is also called Nadir Shadi War, and it is on the invasion of Nadir Shah. Not just the history, but also a finest specimen of poetry. And then we have another war, Dulle Bhatti Di War, Dulle Di War.
Dulle Di War is very popular.
Very popular. And interestingly, it was collected from Jalandhar, East Punjab.
Where does he belong to Pindi Bhattiya?
Pindi Bhattiya, while he belonged to this part of the Punjab. And then another great war is by Shah Muhammad. Shah Muhammad is 19th century poet. After the death of Ranjit Singh, the empire was in disarray, and there was chaos, anarchy, and internecine war, and factionalism. So within 10 years, East India Company, it collapsed in East India Company and took over and annexed Punjab. But before that, there are two famous wars, Anglo-Sikh wars.
Okay. Which was first in Amritsar and...
It's beyond, towards Firozpur and other area. The second one was in Gujarat, Cheliawali, the
Cheliawali.
fairest one.
It still has a very great graveyard of English officers.
Yes, they
who are
lost
buried
so
there.
many troops, and they were almost routed. But somehow, because they were collaborators
Yeah.
in the Sikh and Punjabi army, they collaborated with the East India Company, and sabotaged the war. And Shah Muhammad, he was from Amritsar, a great patriot and very conscious poet. He wrote Jang Hind Punjab. That is on the first Anglo-Sikh war, and how it played out and all the details. A beautifully written, wonderfully constructed story of how Punjab fell to the East India Company.
Well, I have not yet completed half of the list of my questions, but time is running out. So quickly, I would like to hear from you. I mean, these are all great poets you have just mentioned. There's nothing that we want to compare between them. But what are your personal favorites?
In Punjabi or otherwise?
Later, I'll come to the non-Punjabi poets as well, but first, your Punjabi poets.
I think I like Amrita Pritam, Pash, Najam Hussain Sayyid, and there was a man who is no longer in this world, Zamurad Malik, Professor Zamurad Malik. He wrote beautiful poetry, modern poetry, died young, and then this Nasina Nyumpatti,
Oh, she was a great poet.
great poet, and among my contemporaries I like Tawqir Chughtai, this Raja Sadakullah and Salim Shehzad, and I like them. Maybe there are many others, but at the moment, this is what comes to my mind.
There were two of your friends, and who I like them as well. Abid Ameek Sahab and
Yes,
Ishad Taunsi Sahab.
great. In fact, one of my book is dedicated to them, and also I wrote their obituary not only in a column, but there are two poems dedicated, one to Ishad, another to Abid. It's a great.
I learnt a lot from them.
Yes, Abid was a great mind, always provoked people, inspired people,
And always came up with new ideas.
great intellectual. But unfortunately, he was more interested in oral tradition because his forte was talk, conversation. He wrote very little, and I always insisted you write more, but he would somehow avoid it.
Talwatni is, I think, his most popular poem.
Yes, his two books are published, Talwatni and Pakhi Jatak Te Rasta. And Irshad Taunsi is also very mystically inclined poet, but very, very good poet.
And who are your favorites non-Punjabi poets? Anyone from this land? Non-Punjabi? you told Majid Amjad.
Yes, he's a very fine poet with all modern sensibilities and technical know-how, how to compose a poem, not ghazal. Though he's also very
One
good
of his
ghazal
ghazals
poet,
are quite
but
popular.
basically he
sung
is
by
the one who has came out of the rut as far as meter is concerned, as the construction of language is concerned. He is the first genuine Urdu poet who really introduced modern poem.
What are your comments about Rashid, if I may ask? Because maybe his Persianized diction, you don't feel
Not
like, or
much,
his,
not much.
yeah, his, I think, content was.
In fact, he used in later years when he started writing in a particular meter, which is inspired by Punjabi meters.
Really?
Chand, yes. And he avoided heavy Persian vocabulary. Is more Hindi, Urdu, even bit of Punjabi. So he kind of created a blend which is closer to our society, our speech.
You were telling one day that perhaps Bahadur Shah Zafar also wrote in Punjabi.
Yes, yes.
Well, it's very
It's true.
interesting.
Yes,
Maybe a few words about that.
yes. Well, it's available.
Really?
Specimen of his Punjabi poetry is available. At the moment, I've quoted in my columns. It's available. One can find it. That means it simply shows that till the 19th century, Punjabi carried a literary prestige. Why a Mughal king would write in Punjabi? If it was looked down upon as it is not done now by Punjabis themselves. Imagine sitting in Delhi on the throne and writing in Punjabi. Why? Because the tradition fascinated him, he learned the language and wrote in it.
Like many others, I think you also subscribe to the idea that it was the British who devalued Punjabi and its prestige was lowered down during their time. Why would they have done it if they have not done it to other languages? Even
It's
before
not,
the
it's
British.
not my view, it's not my idea. It's a fact.
Okay.
Because in 1849 they annexed Punjab, and then they started thinking about the languages, schools, educations, and there was a great debate. A record is available, and Dr. Tariq Rahman, in one of his books, Education or something, has collected all the records of 19th century, even of 20th century, regarding language policy. So, in other areas of India, their policy was vernacular, that is local language, plus English. This is what they did in Bengal, in Maharashtra, in UP, even in Sindh. But Punjab was the last area to fall to them. And the troops who came to conquer Punjab were comprised Bengalis, Marathis, UPites, Gorkhas, right? And the Musaddi class, Munshi Musaddi class, the clerical class, which accompanied the Gora British officers, they knew Hindi or Urdu, and the officer who came has served their stint at UP, Bihar, UP and other areas, and they were quite familiar with Urdu and Hindi. So it was, as Professor Littner later wrote, that
Who was principal of Government College? Yeah.
not only principal, he was the kind of founder of Government College and great linguist. So he says that two things. One, it was convenience, matter of convenience, that the officer who came, they knew Urdu and Hindi, and their staff knew these languages. So they found it very convenient to impose this language. Two, there is a letter from the Chief Commissioner of Delhi to Punjab government that it will be a blunder to introduce Punjabi in Punjab because it will be political error as it would remind them of their identity. This is an official letter. You can see it in the Dr. Rahman's book. He has quoted it. And so only the three officers, one was the Deputy Commissioner to Shahpur. Shahpur then was the district.
Yes.
Sargodha was
A small village.
Sir J. Wilson. He advocated Punjabi. He in his debate between officers, which is now recorded, he clearly says that Urdu is a foreign language in Punjab. Urdu is as foreign for the boys in school as French is for a villager in English countryside. So if you want to teach and educate these boys and girls, you should introduce Punjabi. They should learn it in their language. and then other was Deputy Commissioner Jhelum and Deputy Commissioner Pindi. They supported Punjabi, but the most of them they opposed. Said no need. So it was convenience and political consideration. Before that, you don't see any writing from any writing in Urdu from Punjab. Why? Because it was not there. They brought it here. Now we feel Urdu is the language of soil. It's not. Still, it's minority language, frankly speaking. Though we have made it a national language, or lingua franca, whatever you call it, but it's a minorities language.
Well, there are so many things to discuss with you, but of course we cannot go beyond this time, and maybe some other session is needed to have complete all these things. Thank you very much, Soofi sir.
Pleasure.
It
was a pleasure to be with you. Thank you so much.
Viewers, thank you for watching us. See you next Sunday, same time.